Now we're going to look for what we call the lowest common denominator of two fractions. Let's take the fraction 3/4 and the fraction 4/5. We want to rewrite both those fractions such that they have a common denominator. The same denominator. We need to make 3/4 and 4/5 into equivalent fractions with the same denominator. So we need to search for that lowest common denominator, and the way we do it is we look at both denominators, 4 and 5, and we write down all the multiples of 4. So 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 16, 20, 24. The multiples of 5 are 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, 20, 25. Then we have a look at the lowest common multiple for both 4 and 5, and you can see it's 20. So we should be able to rewrite 3/4 and 4/5 with exactly the same denominator, which is going to be 20. So we need to change 3/4 into something out of 20 and 4/5 into an equivalent fraction out of 20. What do we do to 4 to get 20? We multiply it by 5. 3 times 5 is 15. So 3/4 has an equivalent fraction of 15/20, and 4/5, what do we do to 5 to get 20? We multiply it by 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So now we've converted 4/5 to an equivalent fraction out of 20. Both those fractions now have a common denominator of 20. Now this example is very similar. We're asked to find which fraction, 4/5 or 5/6, is the largest. And the way we do it is to convert both fractions to equivalent fractions with exactly the same denominator. And we need to find the lowest common denominator that we can use for both fractions. So we take both 5 and 6 and write down their multiples. So 5 times 1 is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, as on the previous page. And multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 20, 30, 36, 42. The lowest common multiple there is 30. So we should be able to write 4/5 as a fraction out of 30, an equivalent fraction out of 30. What did we do to 5 to make 30? We multiplied by 6, so multiplying top and bottom by 6, you'll get 24 out of 30, which is in a fraction that is equivalent to 4/5, where the denominator is 30, and 25 out of 30 is the equivalent fraction for 5/6. So once we have exactly the same denominators, we can compare the fraction. So which is larger, 25/30 or 24/30? And of course the answer is 25/30 is larger, so hence 5/6 must be larger than 4/5. Now the addition and subtraction of fractions that have common denominators is very easy. If you read the instructions for some very simple examples in the study guide, and if you can do those, you can move on to the ones that I've set on the right hand side. So once the denominators are common, it doesn't change. The denominator stays as it is. So your answer will be in eighths, but you add the two numerators, so 5 plus 2 is 7. So 5/8 plus 2/8 is 7/8. This is another example. 7/11 plus 6/11. Remember, the denominator stays the same if you're adding or subtracting. So the denominator will stay as 11. Add the two numerators. 7 plus 6 is 13. Now that is an improper fraction, so you're going to have to change your answer to a mixed number. 1 and how many left over when you divide 11 into 13? 2/11. So always change your answer from an improper fraction to a mixed number. The next one is a subtraction. Rules are very much the same. The denominator stays as it is in all additions and subtractions. And then perform the subtraction in the numerator. 16 take away 7 is 9. So your answer is 9/15. Well, that is an answer, but can you simplify that? If you can simplify, you should. What's a factor that's common to 9 and 15? Well, I think 3 divides into 9. 3 times 3 divides into 15. 3 times as well. So your answer there in simplest form is 3/5. The only way you're able to add or subtract fractions is if they have a common denominator. Now we've spent quite a bit of time looking for common denominators, and the reason we've done it is at times we're asked to add fractions that have different denominators, and in that case we need to change them into common denominators, so we've got to make equivalent fractions with common denominators before we can perform the addition or the subtraction. A very easy example of this, a half plus a quarter, is shown on this page of the study guide, and I'm going to ask you to work through that on your own, and I'm going to set up a slightly more difficult problem on the right hand side board. So on the right hand side we've got 3/4 plus 1/3. The denominators are different. The denominators are 4 and 3. So we've got to find the lowest common multiple for 4 and 3 and set that up as the denominator for both of those fractions. The lowest common multiple of 4 and 3 is 12. So we've got to change 3/4 into an equivalent fraction out of 12. So to make 4 into 12, you've got to multiply by 3. But remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you must also do to the numerator. And then 1/3 to make it into an equivalent fraction out of 12, you've got to multiply by 4 and perform the same operation on the numerator. So what we do now is we multiply 4 by 3, which is 12, 3 by 3, which is 9. So on the line of working below, we will have 9 over 12 plus 3 by 4 is 12. 1 multiplied by 4 is 4. So it'll be 4 over 12. Now the denominators are common. We've made equivalent fractions out of 12 for both 3/4 and 1/3. We use the rule for adding, which means leave the denominator as it is. Add the two numerators and you'll have 13 over 12, which is an improper fraction, of course, so we must change it to a mixed number in our answer, 1 and 1/12.